Hello, my name's Joel Hargis with the Florida Aviation Network, and we are here at Sun and Fun 21. I'll tell you what, Sun and Fun this year's been fantastic. The weather's been great, the Blue Angels flew in town yesterday, and everybody's been having a great time. If you're not out here, you need to start headed this way because it's great. We have a great show for you. I've got a couple good friends of mine that have an incredible story to tell. Today with me on my left here, I have Jack Hallett and Steve Wolf. Jack has, well, he's a veteran, and he's a World War II veteran, and he was a World War II fighter pilot. That's right, Jack.
That's right.
And to Jack's left, we have Steve Wolf. Steve Wolf is well known around the aviation industry. Steve is arguably one of the best aerobatic instructors in the world, and he's also probably one of the premier kit or plane builders. He really doesn't build from kits, but Steve, you build airplanes, right?
Yeah, a few. I started building my first one when I was 16 and had the rib sitting out in my parents' yard and with spars on it, and I started really young. I rode my bike to the airport when I was 13, and I'm 71. I'm still at the airport.
Yep, and so I've seen many of the airplanes you built over the years, but you have taken on a new project that we want to share with everybody because it's got a really unique story. So you are building a 60% P47 Thunderbolt.
That's right.
How did you take this project on?
Well, it's kind of interesting. After all the years of building professionally for, you know, people like Sean Tucker's Oracle Challenger, Delmar Benjamin's GB, and Cyclone, and a bunch of other airshow stuff, and then I retired, I thought I need a retirement project, and I'm a project person. I love to build. So I thought, okay, what am I going to build? And back about 6 years ago, I met Mr. Jack Hallett, Captain Hallett here, and, you know, it was just fantastic because I met this World War II guy, and he's just a real character, and we took him flying. He's been flying with us. We went out and did aerobatics in the pits. He flew with my wife Kathy in the Zlin. We've just had really a great time and developed quite a friendship, and we just truly love this guy. He's just been fun to be around. And so when I was looking for a project, I thought, what would be better than to recreate Frigid Midget, and about which was the name he put on the P47 Thunderbolt that he flew. And I just thought that would be such a neat project, all metal, build it like the original, and build it super scale. Even though it's scaled down 60%, I want it to look 100% authentic, you know, canopy, everything in proportion. So anyway, that's how, and so I called Jack, and the COVID thing had just broke out. It was early. We've been working on it since about February last year. And so I called Jack and I said, Jack, you need to live to be 102 or 3. And he goes, why? And I said, I want you to see Frigid Midget fly again. And it's just been just a great project. You know, I've sat down and started doing the drawings and putting everything together. And it's been a big project, but it's kept me out of mischief, that's for sure.
So Jack, what did you think when Steve said, I want to build the Frigid Midget?
I was so honored. It just, it's wonderful. I've got to live until I see it fly. And it just, I go up there, I've helped him some by deburring some of the holes he's drilled, and we've also dimpled the holes and everything. And it's just such an honor to have somebody do that.
So he comes up there quite a bit, right, Steve?
Yeah, usually a couple times a week. And anybody that's ever met Jack would appreciate this deal. He's very witty, he has a tremendous memory, and you can't get anything past him at all. And a good example is I started him out deburring holes. There's probably 10,000 holes that he's been in. There's 2 sides to a hole, so that's 20,000 times it running a little deburring tool. And I gave him the job, and he kept talking about the union. You know, well, it's just him and I in there, and I have to check with the union, make sure it's okay. Well, he comes about 8:39 in the morning, works till noon, and then we feed him. He comes up, and Kathy cooks a lunch, and we all sit down. We hear a lot more World War II or growing up stories in Boston and what it was like, which has been very, very interesting to listen to stories of this generation, you know, known as the greatest generation and stuff. And I moved when we started what they call dimpling or countersink. It's actually dimpling the sheet metal for the flush rivets. he helped me do that, hold the sheet metal. And at that point, you know, he considered it a promotion. So he said he had to check with the union and stuff. And the union said, he said, according to the union, I get an extra cookie for lunch, you know, for dessert. So, and then I made him go back and deburr a few holes. Well, he had to check with the union to see if it's in his job description. And it's just joking around like that. But in all sincerity, he has been a big help. He's really working on it. And for me personally, if you can imagine, I don't know of any other World War II replica project that somebody's working on where they actually have the guy that flew the airplane 76, 77 years ago, flew 104 missions and flew that airplane.
How many missions, do you know how many missions, you remember how many missions you did in the P47?
No, I didn't keep track. I figured I flew probably 60, 70 missions in the P38 and then finished up in the P47. A lot of the guys really kept track. I didn't keep track.
Is that right?
Yeah, I figure probably around 40.
And you
60 and
flew
40.
You flew close air support. You didn't escort bombers and do that.
I did some escort. Mostly the escort was in the P38, and it wasn't the type of escort that you think about like the 8th Air Force did. The escorting I did in the P38 was, for instance, I flew 6.5 hours over Berlin in a racetrack pattern, where we were circling like this and the B-17s were coming in underneath us. And we were around 27 or 30,000 feet. And I do distinctly recall we had a free air temperature instrument in the windshield. It was 41 below zero. And it was freezing our rear end off. And I think the heating system in the P-38 was designed by German engineers to freeze us to death. Because the heat had to come from each engine, and invariably one heater worked and the other one didn't. So this leg was freezing, this leg was burning. So you said, well, maybe they could shoot me down so I can get out of this damn thing. But
so speaking of that, I know that you were actually, of course, close air support, you were actually shot down twice in World War II by ground fire.
Yes.
And one was in the Frigid Midget, was it not?
No. No, I was in somebody else's airplane.
Oh, yeah.
But I was in a P-47.
You shot down in a P-47?
Yes. My airplane was going under, I don't recall what it was, engine change or what, but anyway, I was flying somebody else's airplane. And I was so low, I couldn't bail out. So the only thing I could do, we used, when I was instructing before I went overseas, we used to argue about what do you do when the engine quits in woods and stuff like that. Some of the guys would argue that they would drop down over the trees and
nest it. Yeah.
Nest it. But my argument was I didn't want a pine tree stuck up my rear end. And you read about somebody that fell out of a third-story window and went through an awning, and the immediate impact was absorbed by the awning, or they fell into a newly dug-up pile of dirt and lived through it. So my theory was that if you could absorb the initial impact, that you had a pretty good chance of survival. And I think my theory worked. Now, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not giving recommendations, but I'm here to talk about it.
I was going to say, you lived through it, right?
So I was so low when I got hit. I don't know what my airspeed was, probably 300, 350, 400, somewhere in there. So what I did, I stuck the nose between two trees. And the first thing that happened was the right wing hit. Then I don't know whether the fuselage dropped and then the left wing hit, or whether the left wing hit and then the fuselage dropped. But with that big R-2800 Pratt & Whitney engine hit, it was like a tank going through there. And I think my head didn't hit the gun sight because my head was probably going like so, and then it came to a full stop. And guys from Patton's 3rd Armored Division pulled me out of that one.
Patton's 3rd Armored Division pulled you out. Now,
yeah.
that's walking, talking history, folks. I mean, who else had an experience with Patton's 3rd Army to the rescue, right? But what a great story that is. So one of the things we promote is flight safety. So there's a little lesson if you know.
But I don't know whether I guess my theory is correct. I don't know. I'm not a physicist.
That's your story, and you're sticking to it, right?
Exactly.
It sounds like it worked, and
I'm here.
Yeah, and you're here. And one thing I want to say is Jack also his 11th mission was flying a P-38 over Normandy, providing top cover for the invasion that morning, and on through the Battle of the Bulge, and then to the up through to the end there. So he definitely was around. Steve,
one of the neat things, and we've got a little model of the Frigid Midget here, and one of the neat things that I think you're doing is, well, I'm going to let you explain it. Tell me how you're going to finish the paint scheme on this.
Well, the paint scheme, I'm very lucky that John Starr, who's been written up quite a bit lately in Sport Aviation, the AA magazine, is one of the top premier painters of aircraft in the United States, is moving to Love's Landing, where I live.
Oh.
And he's planning on, they're just starting his house now, and when he moves out from Oregon to there, he's planning on painting it. And he's super with the airbrush. So we're going to make this airplane look like it's had 50 or 60 missions on it. You know, most people build an airplane, they want it all glossy and not a ding or dent in it. You know, if I slip with a rivet gun a little bit, it's just going to be a battle scar, you know, so I don't have to, I mean, we're going to pay attention. But so we're going to paint it up as Frigid Midget with the silver wings, the olive drab fuselage, the yellow cowling with the Disney dwarf on the cowl, and the Frigid Midget painted on it and all the writing and everything. But he's also going to put the soot coming off the gun barrels, exhaust stains, and leaky rivets, and everything will be painted to look like it's actually been flown, and then clear coated in a satin finish, not a high gloss, but in a places will be glossier, like the cowling that was yellow, but it'll be made to look, when it's sitting there, like you walk up, even if you washed and cleaned and waxed it, it's going to look like it's been really flown. Even the cockpit. We even have the original P47 throttle quadrant out of a D model, which is what we're doing, the D model bubble top P47 that was donated by Ben Doggett, a friend of ours, and he donated this original throttle quadrant. Wow. And lucky that the P47 was such a massive airplane. You realize that thing was 52 inches across inside the fuselage.
Oh, wow.
At 60%, I still have 36.5 inches. I have as wide as a Luscombe inside, but yet you sit in the middle of this thing. I mean, it's a humongous airplane. And even at 60%, it's a fairly large airplane.
So, something I want to point out, and if I could get a camera on this, so normally this would be all olive drab, but if you'll notice, the top of the wings are silver. That's not the way they painted them, and I'll let Jack explain why the Frigid Midget has silver wings on top.
Well, in the 9th Air Force, we were a tactical air force. And after the invasion, the 9th moved over to France, and we moved with the troops. So as we moved, the first squadron that moved to the new field grabbed the best quarters. So we moved from, forget where we were, to Saint-Dizier. And Saint-Dizier, we got the best quarters, which was a chateau on top of this hill. And the chateau was here, and the Marne River was down here, and across the Marne River was the field. So to get from our chateau to the field was a footbridge. The original bridge had been bombed out. And so the chateau, then this is where we switched from P-38s to P-47s. Well, they brought in 3 P-47s for the whole group to check out in. And we lost one the very first day. The pilot bailed out, so we didn't lose the pilot. So that left 2 for the whole group to check out in. So I went to combat with 55 minutes in the P-47. So I was taking off in this airplane, which had olive drab all the way across on the top. As I was taking off parallel to the Marne River. I looked over on my left and I saw these 3 or 4 guys about to cross the footbridge coming back to the chateau. And I figured I'll knock them in the river. So I pulled up and I came back at them and dove down at them. And I looked up and there were 3 trees staring me in the face. And I hauled back on the stick. Well, the P-38 would have gone up. The P-47, the attitude changed, but the altitude did not. So I went through 3 trees. And I staggered back and I called the tower and I said, I think I better land immediately. So they didn't question me and I came around and I landed. Well, the wings were crumpled. I tore the oil cooler off the bottom of the airplane. I had a log about yay big through the engine. And I taxied in and my engineering officer, Tex Young, said, Jack, what the hell did you do? And I said, well, I'm afraid I flew some trees. And he said, oh, God, well, we got to change the wings. So we did, and he put the thing to one side until we started to fly combat, so we could call it a combat accident. So when they put the new wings on, they didn't bother to change or to paint the tops of the wings. They left them silver, hence the wings being silver on the top. It didn't affect the horizontal stabilizer in the tail, so that stayed olive drab. But and they had to put a new engine on it too, so he was a little bit upset. We had to change the prop too. But it didn't fly too bad. It was a little bit of vibration, but it flew pretty good. But they did have to take the log out of the engine too.
So the bottom line is the wings are silver on top because you were out fooling around being on
Yeah.
it.
Oh, the guys dropped, but not in the river.
Oh.
So it didn't pay off. And I actually have a picture at home, a small photograph. Somebody was hanging out the window of the chateau, and they caught me coming in, but they didn't catch me hitting the trees, but they caught me coming in. Well, and you know, we didn't have anybody. We had, normally when you changed airplanes, you filled out this form, and you wrote down and you drew diagrams of the fuel system, the oil system. We didn't do that I can recall. And my memory is fairly good, but I don't remember filling out the paperwork of this. And if a guy had an hour and a half when we went to combat, he was the high time man in the P-47. And here we go from a tricycle gear, twin engine, with it firing straight out, to a P-47 with 850s converging. And believe me, I wasn't the only one that hit something. Most of us that switched over hit something before we got through. I was just the first one to do it. So this is the reason.
So what an incredible project, Steve. And so here's the magic question. I know you hate this as a builder, but any idea when this will actually be in the air?
Well, you know, the fuselage is getting there fairly well done now. And I'm doing a lot of detail, making it very, very scale, right down to the turbocharger outlets and the exhaust deal on the bottom and just the antennas. Everything is scale, very, very scale. So I'm putting a lot of detail. But I would like to see Jack get a chance to see it fly. So I'm working pretty steady on it. Considering we've only been a year in construction, it's actually quite a ways along.
Yeah,
it is.
And stuff. So we're going to just keep plowing along, but it's probably a couple years out. Like I said, he needs to live to be at least 102 probably, but we're going to have fun doing it. And he really is good help. You know, I like having him help. You know, he shows up on time. He doesn't sit there on his cell phone or iPhone, and he just works away. You give him something to do, away he goes on it, and works very diligently. And so it's really been fun. And I just got to say, you know, Jack got to switch from P-38s to the P-47, even though they all wanted Mustangs. And I'm not taking anything away from the P-51 Mustang. It did a tremendous job on long-range escort and stuff. But the P-47, for what they were doing, fighter bomber, and doing low-level bombing and strafing trains and yards and shooting up airfields was actually a much better airplane, as proven how many times he went through trees and he's still here. It was known as an airplane that would get you home.
Right, right. And its nickname is?
Jug.
The Jug.
It probably, as much as I hated to leave the P-38, it probably, for what we were doing, was probably a better airplane.
Well, I tell you what, I could sit here and talk to you guys all morning, but we're running out of time. Big thanks to Steve and you and Jack, and you know, I know I'm going to ride up there from time to time and watch this thing come together. I can't wait. Steve, you drew the plans on this even, didn't you?
Right, yeah, I drew the plans. And believe it or not, a lot of it was scaled off of the model there. And along with 19,416 original P47 drawings that are available online.
Oh, wow.
You can actually find it on the internet, which is way overwhelming, but it does give you a lot of actual dimensions.
That's incredible.
I got to say, this guy is incredible.
Yeah, he's an incredible builder.
I've never seen anything like it in my life. I really believe that this airplane is going to be stronger than what I flew.
Right? Okay. Well, thanks for coming, guys. I'm Joel Hargis with the Florida Aviation Network, and we are live here in the clear at Sun and Fun 21. Come and see us at Sun and Fun.